So what does the government need to do to help the country bounce back? Let's hear now from think tank IBON Foundation Executive Director Sonny Africa. Mr. Africa, thank you so much for joining us on The Final Word. Just listening to our government officials, there seems to be no coherent message on the state of the economy. One says a grim year ahead, the other one is saying the worst is over. Tell us, where are we right now in this economic framework?
Well, we're in a bad place. I think the main reason there's mixed messaging with the government is they're caught between two narratives. One, they want to make things appear that things are fine, so no need to spend that much to recover. But at the same time, they know things are really much worse than the optimistic forecast. So I think the reason we're getting mixed messages is because we're not being told the truth, the bottom line. For us, we do agree that poverty will increase next year, but we want to be clear. It's not the pandemic keeping people poor. It's government inaction. The government, if it took enough measures, the situation doesn't have to be bleak. But the problem is, for instance, we heard the statement of NEDA earlier. It's amazing. They actually had a low estimate of 15.5% poverty next year as the low end of the range, which is even less than in 2018. So I think that's a good indication that the figures aren't really that accurate, because it's inconceivable why, despite all the lockdowns, despite the effects, including of the schools, which are having difficulty opening, much more so many micro, small, and medium enterprises,
Right.
inconceivable for them to even think that there's a possibility for a low-end 15.5%.
And Mr. Africa, you mentioned two critical words here: government inaction. Congress, in the past few weeks, basically tried to fast-track this 165 billion peso Bayanihan 2 Act. And both houses have ratified this act, but why hasn't the president signed it into law? Because this money is needed to pump prime the economy and help the micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises.
Exactly. I think that's two levels of a problem there. First, like you said, it's crazy. Clear. Stimulus packages have been proposed since as early as April and May this year, and it took so long to even come out with a diluted package, and now it's there, it's been passed, but hasn't been signed into law. I think that's one level of the problem there in action. But actually, even if it is signed into law, it's going to be a drop in the bucket. I think the government, if it again was more candid, the economy will be losing, because of the pandemic, up to 2 trillion pesos this year. That's counting maybe a 1 billion peso contraction from 2020, from 2019, and also the 1 trillion that would have been lost. That's lost because you're not getting the 6 to 7% growth that they projected.
But
so,
you know, Sonny,
2 trillion,
I really want a
160
clarification
benefit.
here. I really want a clarification here, because you say that 165 billion pesos is just a drop in the bucket. But we need the money yesterday. Why hasn't it been signed into law? Because we need the money now to pump prime this economy one way or another.
I think exactly there is a problem there. And I also remember we did participate in the hearings in Congress and Senate about that. Actually, to pass a stimulus package under the finance managers, it's like pulling teeth. They really do not want to spend. I think even this 160 billion pesos had to be squeezed out of them. But apparently, we haven't squeezed hard enough, and they're still refusing to push for its final signing.
And, you know, this survey from the social weather station, 40% of Filipinos expect the economy to worsen in the next 12 months. They also came out with a survey that 27.3 million Filipinos, or a 45.5% unemployment rate, has left a lot of Filipinos out of jobs. But it looks like it's so far away from the government estimate of more than 4 million Filipinos jobless. So where do we really stand here?
There's a problem with official government estimates because of the methodology. People who haven't looked for work, even if they're unemployed, they're not counted as unemployed. So of course, under lockdown conditions, you will have a lot of people, because they're scared to get sick, apart from not having the money to go around, they have been discouraged or unable to look for work, even if they wanted to. So unfortunately, our estimate in IBON, there's at least 2.5 million invisibly unemployed, because those sorts of people aren't being counted. But I think the survey is quite important because people know what's happening on the ground. People know that they have poor jobs prospects, and even if they had a job, they know their incomes are going to be very low because, to be clear, about 70% of our employment is in the informal sector. So these are people with very irregular jobs, irregular income, no job security, no benefits. So even if you do get a job, the quality of jobs is actually going to be worse. And I think people know that. I mean, they've been struggling to find decent work for the past years, and they know if it was hard before, it's even going to be worse now with the pandemic, which is why I think they also know. I think they know the Biennial 2 isn't being passed. They know the promised cash assistance has petered out. They know there are no wage subsidies forthcoming. I mean, if you put all that together, people are very rational. They know things are bleak coming into the remaining months of 2020 and much more in 2021. We've seen the 2021 government budget. It was so disappointing. There's no provision for substantial cash subsidies. There's a token amount for informal sector workers under the DOL 2PAD. But beyond that, it's business as usual. Infrastructure, attract foreign investment, repay debt, increase on military spending. It seems like for the economic managers, 2020 didn't happen. They're basically recreating a budget that they would have done even before the pandemic.
There's no sense of urgency. Thank you so much for joining us on the program, Sonny Africa, Executive Director of the IBON Foundation.